They had the voice, they had the song, they had the moment. But history forgot them.
And the woman I love, she has gone.
Tonight, we pull back the curtain on 12 souls who stood at the edge of greatness. And somehow, the spotlight moved on without them. Some were robbed, some were overlooked, some were simply too far ahead of their time. This is not just a countdown, this is a reckoning. Welcome to Soul Letters. Before we begin, if you've never heard these names before, that's exactly the point. Hit that subscribe button, because this channel exists for the ones history left behind. Now, let's go back, way back. Number 12, Barbara Lynn, You'll Lose a Good Thing, 1962. Picture a young woman from Beaumont, Texas, left-handed guitarist. Writing her own songs at a time when women weren't supposed to. Her name was Barbara Lynn. In 1962, she walked into a studio and recorded You'll Lose a Good Thing. It hit number 1 on the R&B charts, number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. The world leaned in, and then it leaned away. Record labels didn't know what to do with a black woman who played guitar and wrote her own material. The industry filed her under difficult to market. But here's the twist. Aretha Franklin covered her song. The Rolling Stones covered her song. Even John Lennon admitted he was listening. Barbara Lynn was influencing legends, while being erased from the story herself. That's how this countdown begins. Number 11, Jerry Butler, For Your Precious Love, 1958, early 60s, they called him the Iceman. Not because he was cold, but because his voice was so smooth, so controlled, it made everything around him feel warm by contrast. Jerry Butler, Chicago-born, the original lead voice of the Impressions. For Your Precious Love stopped people in their tracks in 1958 and carried weight well into the early 60s. But here's where it gets complicated. The label put the Impressions name on the record. Jerry's voice was on it, Jerry's soul was in it, and then they pushed him out. A solo career followed, promising, then stalling, then rebuilding.
Well, that's what love will do.
Jerry Butler spent years fighting for the recognition that one single had promised him. He never quite got the throne, but he never stopped singing either. Some men are born to hold the crown. Some are born to remind others what it feels like. Number 10, Betty Everett, the Shoop Shoop song, It's in His Kiss, 1964, Close Your Eyes. You know this song. Is it in his eyes? Oh no, you'll be deceived. That voice, that bounce.
Can I tell if you love me so? Is it in
That pure, unapologetic joy. Betty Everett recorded the Shoop Shoop song in 1964 and handed the world a piece of pure gold. It charted, it soared, it became one of the defining sounds of the decade. And then, Cher recorded it in 1990 for a movie soundtrack. It went to number 1 globally. Betty Everett received almost none of that moment. The song that defined her career became synonymous with someone else's comeback. She passed in 2001, quietly, without the stadium farewells, without the legacy documentaries. Just a voice, lost in someone else's echo. Number 9, William Bell, You Don't Miss Your Water, 1961. There are songs that make you feel something before you even understand the words. William Bell wrote one of those songs. You Don't Miss Your Water.
Please welcome William Bell.
In the beginning.
Recorded at Stax Records in Memphis, 1961. It was country soul before anyone had a name for it. Raw, aching.
Said, how can this be?
Ancient sounding in the best possible way. Otis Redding heard it, Otis felt it, and Otis covered it. That tells you everything. But William Bell was drafted into the military right
You don't miss your water.
as his career was catching fire. He came back to a changed landscape. Different sounds, different stars, he kept recording. He kept creating. Decades later, he'd win a Grammy in 2016. But the moment, the wave that should have carried him, It had already passed, and it didn't wait. Number 8, Brenda Holloway, Every Little Bit Hurts, 1964. Motown had a machine.
Every night I cry, every night I sigh, every night.
A beautiful, ruthless, perfectly oiled machine. And sometimes the machine chewed people up. Brenda Holloway was 17 years old when she signed with Motown, the first West Coast artist Berry Gordy ever signed.
This loneliness you've given me.
Her voice on Every Little Bit Hurts in 1964 was devastating, controlled heartbreak. Every note placed like a confession.
If you will stay.
The Beatles personally requested her as their opening act on their 1965 American tour. Read that again. The Beatles chose Brenda Holloway, and yet Motown kept her on the back burner.
Come back to me.
Kept her waiting while they developed other artists. Kept promising her an album that took years to arrive.
I can give you all the things that.
By 1968, she was gone, burned out, spiritually exhausted.
Every little bit.
She walked away from music to find peace. The world called it a quiet exit. It was really a quiet tragedy. Number 7, Joe Tex, Hold What You've Got, 1964. Now here's a name that deserves to be spoken louder. Joe Tex, funny, fierce, funky before funk had a name. Hold What You've Got hit in 1964, and it was a sermon wrapped in a groove. Part preacher, part showman, all soul. Joe Tex had James Brown energy, and some say he had it first. The rivalry between those two men is one of the great untold stories of R&B, stolen choreography, backstage confrontations.
1, 2, 3. Yes, they.
A competition that drove them both to perform harder, wilder, better. But history crowned one man, and it wasn't Joe Tex.
The woman wants him. Yes, she will.
He'd find success again in the 70s with Ain't Gonna Bump No More. But that first wave, that raw, electric, preaching from the gut wave of the early 60s, he deserved to ride it all the way. Number 6, Fontella Bass, Rescue Me, 1965. Rescue Me, Come On and Rescue Me. You've heard this song in a movie, in a commercial, in a stadium. You may not have known her name. Fontella Bass recorded Rescue Me in 1965, and it was a rocket. Number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. A voice that could shake walls and mend hearts at the same time.
Come on and take my heart, take your love.
But here's the dark twist. Fontella Bass spent years fighting chess records, claiming she was never properly paid for one of the most licensed songs in R&B history.
Come on and take my hand.
She heard her voice everywhere, in Coca-Cola commercials, in films, and she struggled to pay her heating bill, the lawsuit, the settlement, the quiet bitterness of a woman who gave the world a gift and watched the world profit from it without her. Number 5, Jimmy Ruffin, What Becomes of the Brokenhearted, 1966. Here's a question that never gets old. What becomes of the brokenhearted who had love that's now departed?
As I walk this land of broken dreams.
Jimmy Ruffin asked it in 1966, and no one has answered it better since. That voice, warm, wounded, searching, made What Becomes of the Brokenhearted one of the most emotionally complete singles of the entire decade.
What becomes of the broken heart?
And now for the twist that will haunt you. Jimmy Ruffin's younger brother was David Ruffin, lead singer of The Temptations. 2 brothers, 2 extraordinary voices. One became a household name, the other became a footnote.
Some kind of peace of mind.
Jimmy's single actually outsold several Temptations records. But Motown's promotional machine had a direction, and Jimmy wasn't in it. He found success in the UK, where audiences adored him deeply.
Right now, need you, baby, I need you, darling. Yeah.
But in America, the country that made the music he poured his soul into, he was the Ruffin they forgot. Number 4, Mary Wells, My Guy, 1964. She was Motown's first superstar. Not one of the first. The first. Mary Wells walked through the door before Diana Ross. Before the Supremes had their first number 1. Before the machine knew what it was truly capable of building.
My guy is Miss Mary Wells.
My Guy in 1964 was flawless, playful but certain, light but unshakable. It became Motown's first number 1 pop single, a landmark not just for the label but for black music in America. The Beatles were so captivated by her sound that they invited her to tour with them in the UK.
He's my ideal, as a matter of fact.
Read that again. Mary Wells toured with the Beatles, and then she made a decision that changed everything. At 21 years old, she left Motown, walked away from Berry Gordy,
Together, I'm telling you from the start.
away from the machine that had made her a star. She wanted creative freedom. She wanted ownership. She wanted to be treated like the artist she was, not a product to be managed.
As a matter of opinion, I think he's right.
What she got instead was silence. No label could replicate what Motown had built around her. The hits dried up. The momentum collapsed. One solo attempt after another fell short of the heights she'd already reached.
I'm sticking to my guy like a spam.
She spent the rest of her life watching the empire she helped build crown other queens. And then illness came. In the early 1990s, Mary Wells was diagnosed with laryngeal cancer. She lost her ability to sing. She lost her home. She faced her final years in financial hardship. The woman who had handed Motown its first #1 pop record, struggling to survive. She passed in 1992 at just 49 years old. Fellow artists held fundraisers. Diana Ross paid her rent. The industry she had helped ignite finally showed up, but only at the end. Some pioneers build the road, and then watch everyone else drive down it. Mary Wells paved the way for every woman who ever stood on a Motown stage. The tragedy is, she deserved to stand there longest of all. Number 3, Major Lance, 1963. There are songs so instantly recognizable that just humming the melody makes people stop and smile. Major Lance had one of those songs, You already know it. You may not know his name, but you know that song. Released in 1963 on OK Records, it shot to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit number 2 on the R&B charts. It was pure joy bottled into 3 minutes. Bouncy, warm, irresistibly catchy, and driven by a voice so likable it felt like sunshine.
Walking through the park.
Major Lance was Chicago soul at its most charming. Produced by the brilliant Curtis Mayfield. Yes, that Curtis Mayfield. The record was a masterclass in feel-good music with real craftsmanship underneath. The follow-ups came quickly. Hey Little Girl, The Monkey Time. Each one a slice of early 60s perfection.
I'm a man, I think I understand.
For a moment, a beautiful, shining moment. Major Lance looked like he was about to become one of the biggest names in R&B. And then the moment passed. The British invasion swept in and changed everything. American radio shifted. The smooth Chicago soul sound that had made Major Lance a star suddenly felt like yesterday's news to the gatekeepers. His chart runs grew shorter, label support thinned. By the late 60s, the hits had stopped coming altogether. But here is the cruelest twist. In 1978, Major Lance was convicted of cocaine distribution and sentenced to federal prison. The man who had given the world one of the most purely joyful records of the entire decade served time behind bars and emerged into a music world that had completely moved on. He performed on the oldies circuit. He smiled for the audiences who remembered. He carried the weight of what could have been with quiet dignity. He passed in 1994. Some songs are so full of happiness that you forget they belong to a man who knew real sadness. Major Lance gave the world 6 minutes of pure joy, that first joyful hum, and the world hummed along. Then forgot who taught it the melody. Number 2, Howard Tate, Ain't Nobody Home, 1966. Some disappearances in music are slow, gradual, a fading of momentum over years. And then there is Howard Tate. Howard Tate didn't fade. He vanished. Born in Macon, Georgia, raised in Philadelphia. A voice that combined the fire of gospel with the precision of a man who understood exactly what a lyric needed to do. In 1966, he released Ain't Nobody Home on Verve Records, produced by the great Jerry Ragavoy. It was a masterpiece of anguish and gospel fury, driving, desperate, completely alive. Janis Joplin heard it, B.B. King heard it, Both of them covered it. Let that breathe for a moment.
Many times I begged for you to come home.
Janis Joplin and B.B. King both looked at Howard Tate's song and said, yes, that one. We want that one. A string of singles followed, each one showcasing a voice that could pivot from tender to explosive within a single bar. Critics adored him. Fellow musicians respected him deeply. And then,
Girl, put me through some pain and misery.
somewhere in the wreckage of the early 1970s, Howard Tate simply disappeared. No dramatic exit, no public breakdown, no farewell record. He was there, and then he wasn't. For nearly 3 decades, no one in the music industry knew where he was.
I hoped and prayed that you'd come back someday.
He had become homeless. He had struggled with addiction. He had walked so far from the world that had known his name that the world stopped looking. And then, in 2001, a music journalist found him, alive, living quietly, seemingly forgotten by everyone, except the people who truly love soul music.
It's your turn to pay.
He recorded again. He performed again. Audiences who had never heard his name wept when they heard his voice for the first time. He passed in 2011. The obituaries were kind. They were also far too late. Some men give the world their voice, and the world takes it and forgets to give anything back. Howard Tate deserved the world. What he got instead was a footnote, and a rediscovery that came 30 years too late. Number 1, Donny Hathaway, The Ghetto, 1969-1970. And here we are. Number 1. Some names on this list were overlooked. Some were mismanaged. Some were simply unlucky. But Donny Hathaway was undeniable. A classically trained musician from Chicago.
Everything's alright. Everything, yeah.
A vocalist with a range that moved between whisper and cathedral. A producer, an arranger, a songwriter, a complete artist before the term existed. The Ghetto in 1969 was unlike anything on the radio. Jazz, soul, gospel, protest, all at once.
This is the Ghetto, y'all. Showing up now.
All effortless, his duets with Roberta Flack were perfection. His live album is still studied by musicians today as a masterclass. And then the darkness came. Donny Hathaway struggled with a schizoaffective disorder that grew heavier with each passing year. Paranoia, fear, a brilliant mind turned against itself. In January 1979, he fell from the 15th floor of a New York hotel. He was 33 years old, 33, gone before the 1980s. Gone before he could see how deeply his influence would reach, into neo-soul, into R&B, into the very DNA of what music became. Stevie Wonder mourned him. Aretha Franklin mourned him. The entire music world paused. And some silences, once they begin, never truly end.